All right, so we're going to start our first project in Maya, and I encourage you, there's a link to it here in the Project 7 Part 2 on Canvas, and just take a look at all this so you can become familiar with what everything is called and what's going on with the interface. So we're going to start creating the background for your character to live in, and this is going to be based on your sketches, and your ideas might change as you figure out what's possible in Maya, and that's okay. Top left, there's this drop down. Make sure you're in modeling, because we're modeling right now and we're building the world. So then there's these different shelves, and the one we want to be in is poly modeling. And there's a couple different options here, like the different primitives, and we're going to start with this plain one, just the like a sheet of paper. So you click on it, and it shows up in the center of the grid. And then on the left, there's these tools here, and we're going to use the one on the bottom, which is the scale tool. So I'm going to click on that tool, and I'm just clicking and dragging. And we're going to make it really big because it's going to be the entire ground for our terrain, for our planet or world that we're creating. So if you want to move it up, you can move it up with this move tool. So the scale tool is the one on the bottom, and then 1, 2 up from it is this guy, the move tool. You can click on that and you can move it up so it's sitting above the grid. And we're going to add some more polygons to this. So we're still in this poly modeling shelf, and if you come over, right here, there's this tool that's called Smooth Add Polygons. So you just click on it, and that pops up, and you can keep clicking on it to add more. And you do want a lot because we're going to create details, but you don't want so many that it's going to be a super huge file size. So, you know, make enough that you can create some interesting shapes, and you'll see how that works. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make like a mountain or a hill. So we're going to start in the move tool. So that's this one it's like a square with 4 triangles around it. So we're in this tool, and we want to get into those tool settings. So we can do this a couple ways. We can just double click on the tool and this pops up. They're also up here. It's like a hammer and 3 circles, and that gives us the tool settings for whatever tools we have open. And if you switch between tools, it'll change these settings. So we're in the move tool, we're in those tool settings. You can also get here another way with some of the settings in modeling toolkit, and we're going to be using the soft select. But as you can see this soft selection here, there's just a couple options, and then when we come into the tool settings and we go to soft selection, it's this one here, click to open it, there's a couple more options. So that's why I like the tool settings. So we're going to click on soft select, and then we're going to make sure we're in the face selection. So you're in modeling toolkit here on the right, and there's all different options of how to select stuff. So the one on the left is selecting the whole object. This is selecting the vertices or the points. This one's selecting the edges, and this one's selecting the face. So just one polygon. It's basically like a polygon selection. So you want to be in the polygon face selection, and in the tool settings, you're checked on soft select, and now you can just come in here and you can see it's created that shape to pull up. So we can adjust this a lot. There's a couple curve presets here that you can play around with, and you can see what those different ones do. You can also select a preset, and then you can click in here and adjust these points. So I'm just going to get rid of that big one I just made, and I'm going to make some smaller ones in the back. And I'm going to adjust this before I pull it up. So I'm just adjusting this, and then I've made this selection and I'm just pulling it up. And you can move it around. You can press Control Z and start over. Make another one. So you're going to make yours however you want. I'm holding the Alt key and I am left clicking just to zoom around. Now another quick way to make like mountain shapes is with some of the sculpt tools. You can come up here to the sculpting shelf. It's right next to the poly modeling shelf. And a fast one that I like for making mountains is this one with like the spray can. It's called the spray tool. So just click on it. I'm just clicking and dragging and it's creating like a mountain range. Now you can come into the tool settings up here on the right. You could have left them open and we're in the spray tool settings and you can adjust the strength and the buildup, I would say, are good ones to adjust. So you can see that's a little too much. So I'm going to bring the buildup down, bring the strength down, and the size is the size of the brush. So you can see I made it bigger and it's almost the whole size of my object, which I don't want. So make it bigger, smaller, and you can see how that's changing it. And it's changing what's already there. So nothing's ever committed. You can make adjustments to stuff that's already there. So play around with that and the settings. We can add smaller bumps and peaks with this first sculpting tool, the one all the way to the left. And you can see when I clicked on the sculpt, it's just called the sculpt tool, it changes here. So we can change the strength and the buildup. I'm going to change the view so you can really see. And I'm going to make my brush size a little smaller. And you can add, you know, a little more subtle shapes. Think about the terrain of your world where your character lives, what it would look like. And I'm going to make the build-up smaller because I think over here there would be like foothills or smaller mountains. So I'm making it so it's almost like the rooms we've been creating. So there's like 2 walls and I'm going to place my character probably somewhere in here. So just be thinking about how your camera is going to be set up and your composition and the way you want your terrain to look. And obviously you're going to spend a lot more time on this. The next tool I want to show you is the second sculpt tool, and it's the smooth tool. And you can just use this to kind of smooth out if some of your peaks got too jagged or aggressive, you can just smooth some of that stuff out. Oh, and also with the sculpt tool, you can invert it. So you could make valleys that dip in, and you can make the strength, increase the strength of that and the buildup of that. So it's really a deep gorge. So I'm going to undo that. So you can just select the invert to do that. I'm going to go back to the smooth tool and I'm going to make it a little bigger and the strength a little more, and I'm just going to smooth some stuff out. So you can really spend a lot of time making it look exactly how you want. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add some color. So I'm going to close the tool settings here and I'm going to select the entire object. So I'm in the modeling toolkit here on the right, and I'm in this selection tool, which is going to select the whole object. And I'm in the select tool here. So I'm not in my, this shows you the last tool that you use. So we don't want to be in the sculpt tool. We want to be in this arrow in the modeling toolkit. It's all selected. So we can just right click and drag down. So I'm still holding on to my right click and I'm going to assign new material. And these all show up. And I am going to use Lambert for this. I think Lambert and Fong are the good ones to start with. So you can test other stuff out. It might get frustrating, so I would stick to the Lambert and the Fong. So you just click on that, and then it's going to show up here now in your attribute editor. And you can start naming your shapes here. See, this is the plane shape, and I'll just call it ground. And then I don't see what I just created, which was the Lambert. Here it is here. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to go to material attributes. And that's showing me this Lambert material that I just created. So I'm going to call it ground Lambert. and this is where we choose the color. So I'm going to click on this box right here to get the color to come up. We see the RGB, and this is where you created your color palette, and we want the RGB over here to be 0 to 255 to match what we had. So I'm going to come into my color palette, and I want it to be this color, so it's R143. So R143, G134, B127. 34, 127. And you can see it's not exactly looking exactly the same, but it will match. So you get it set up to that, and you should be all good. You can see here, you can change the transparency and all kinds of stuff. So there's lots of options within here, but for right now, you just need to change the color. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a house or a structure, and you can make as many or a few of these as you want. You can make them like a street scene or a city. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to make a really simple house. And I'm going to kind of set up my scene so I have it in the right place. So we're in poly modeling, and I'm going to build a cube. Now you can see it's kind of lost. It goes into the center. So I'm going to get my move tool, and I'm going to move it up and over. And I'm going to get it where I want it. If you don't see it, you can press A on your keyboard to get to recenter, or you can go to this view, which is over here on the left, the 4 squares, and you can figure out where it is. Okay, so I don't want a bunch of divisions in it. I want it to have no divisions. So I'm going to come here to the divisions just like we did, and I'm going to do Command or Control Z to get out of there and to get these options. So I just hit the divisions, the smooth tool, and then I just did Control Z to get out of there. I'm going to make these all 1. So we have no divisions. And now I'm going to extrude to pull up the top a little bit. We're going to make a roof for it. So I'm in my modeling toolkit, and I'm back into my selection tool, because you can see right now it's in a different tool. So I'm in the selection tool here, and I'm clicking the face selection because I just want to select the top for the roof, and we're going to pull it up a little bit. So here's extrude in your modeling toolkit. Just press that, and you can click and scrub on the thickness, just a tiny bit, to give it a little bit, to build it up a little bit. And now I'm going to create a center line that I'm going to pull up for the roof. So we go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop up here. And we want the tool settings for this. So we come up to the left where the hammer is, tool settings, and for this one we want multiple edge loops, but we just want to keep it at 1 because that's going to automatically put it into the center. Clicking on my object, and it automatically makes a line in the center. Now I'm going to select this edge here and pull it up. So I'm going to come into the selection, I'm going to get the edge selection, and I'm just going to click on the one in the center. So that's highlighted in green. And then I'm coming over to the move tool. So important thing, I'm in my selection tool, and I want to make sure soft select is unchecked because we had that checked before. So just make sure you uncheck soft select, and then come to the edge tool, just click on that center edge. So it's just that one highlighted. It says one edge selected, and then we come to the move tool and we pull up the roof. So we're going to do more with that edge loop tool to create a door. So mesh tools, insert edge loop. Now we want to come into the tool settings, and for this one we want them to be relative distance from edge, and we're just pulling these lines out. So I'm going to make a line for the top of the door and the 2 sides of the door. So to pull the sides, I'm starting over here to one side, and this is the line that I want it to intersect with. It's perpendicular to, so I'm clicking and dragging that out here. the top of my door, I want to intersect with this line, so I'm clicking and dragging to where I want the top of my door to be. So now I have this section that's going to be my door. So I want to select it with the face selection, and then I'm going to extrude. And you can see I can pull it all the way in. I'm going to keep it about 0.1. It depends on yours. You know, it depends on how big your house is. So you can also pull it out from here, but I find it a little easier to do it from up here. It's totally up to you. So that makes like a little indentation for your door. It makes it look more realistic. And we're just going to delete this little part here, which I do by edge selecting. And I'm just selecting on that part and pressing delete on my keyboard. So now we can zoom in and we can see that that's a nice little shape that it created. So you can do the same thing for windows. You can use the mesh tools, insert edge loop, to create some lines for where you want your windows to be. So if I want this to be my window, but I made this line with the mesh tool and I want to move it down a little bit, I can come in to the move tool here, the selection tool here, and I can click on the edge and I can just double click on this line and it's going to click the whole thing if I'm in that edge selection. And then I can come into the move tool and I can move that whole line up and down, and it's going all the way around the entire house. So it's really giving you lines for where all your windows are going to be. I'm realizing this is the top of the door, so I probably need another line up here to make my window make sense. So mesh tools, insert edge loop, make another one, and I'm going to make this my window. So now select tool, and if you want a quick way to get to the face selection, you can right click and drag to face, and now you're in the face selection. So we can extrude and you can pull it in or drag it with this. That's up to you. And now you can go through your house and make them as fancy or detailed as you want, at all different kinds of structures. Let me zoom out a little bit and let's color this entire house. So we're going to apply color, apply material to the entire house. So I'm on the entire object selection. The whole thing is selected. I'm right clicking, assign new material, and I'm going to do Lambert again. And this shape I'm going to call house 1. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to material attributes, and it should be this Lambert that we've created. I'm going to call it house 1 so I know what it is. I'm going to click on the color and I can come back into my color palette, say I want it to be this pink, 185, 145, 127. 185, 145, 127. And now it'll be that pink color. Okay, if you're not seeing the color, let's come up and look in the render and make sure it looks good. Render, current perspective. Okay, that's showing up. I think the background is just looking like it's almost the same gray color as the default. So I think that's why it's looking kind of funny. But yours, you can obviously make more interesting colors. So then you can also assign materials to specific polygons. So we can come into right click, face, and we can click on this window here and we can right click, assign new material. You can do Lambert again, and we'll call this window, and we can make it, you know, a dark blue or something, or whatever you want. And then, oops, I'm going to double click on it to set it. Okay, now you can see that that's changed color, and you can also affect the transparency on the window, because maybe that'll make sense for your model. So you can test that again. If you want to see what it looks like in the render, you can come up here to this render and check that out. Okay, so I want you to add a lot of details to your structures. You can also select on this and you can, okay, Command Control C, continue, Command Control V, continue, and you can use the move tool to move out a copy, and then you can make different adjustments to this. So this might help. You can kind of just, rotate them around. The rotate tool's under the move tool, and you can change them up a little bit. You can change the scale, and you can make them look a little bit different. You can change the colors and stuff. That's up to you. You can make a couple of similar houses, or you can make them all different. And then also with the background, you can select specific polygons with the face selection and create different color tonal variations that way. You can also select a polygon and you can add more divisions within that polygon, so you can make it more smooth, or you can change the colors very specifically. That's really up to you. You can also, when you have those polygons selected, you can go to the move tool and you can adjust them like that. That happens if you don't use that extrude tool. It will just kind of warp the whole thing. So you have lots of options with that. Okay, so we're going to create a quick sky dome just to give it some shading, just to give it some color in the background. So I'm going to hold Alt and left click to zoom out so I can see my whole scene. I could select some of these and make them white as if it was a snow-top mountain. So, get really creative with yours. And you can select and hold Shift if you're in the face selection. You can select and hold Shift, and I can right click, assign new material, material attributes, and I can make it super bright white. And you can change that. You can't really see it a lot because it's similar, but I think you guys get the idea of how to do that. Okay, so we're gonna make a sky dome to contain this whole thing and make it look like there's some blue sky in the background. So we're in our poly modeling, we're creating this sphere, and it shows up in the center, and we're coming to the scale tool, and we're just clicking and dragging and making it, bigger than our scene. Add more polygons here to give it more divisions. You can do this, or you can keep clicking on this tool, the smooth tool. And then we're gonna right click, assign new material. I'm gonna do the Fong for this one. Double click, and the Fong is gonna show up. I'm gonna name this Sky Dome, or just Sky, and change the color to blue. Pick the color that you want. And obviously you can change all the stuff, play around with it. And then we have to invert it because it's facing the wrong way. Mesh display and reverse. So then it's facing inward. And then we just have to zoom in to get inside of the sky dome. So I'm holding the Alt key and I'm right clicking until I'm inside of here. Make sure that color looks pretty dark, so I just want to make sure it's light enough to see. And it still looks gray, so I wonder if it didn't reverse. Nope, it is reversed. Okay, so we can check this out in the render, this little clapper with the eye. You can come up here. And you can do render, render, current. Oh, there, and now the blue looks good, so you can see how that looks. So start setting yours up. One last thing we can do, we can try adding some clouds if you want to have fun with that. This is just an option, but it's kind of a cool thing in Maya that isn't too difficult, and it's kind of built-in thing. So come where it says modeling, from this drop down, check FX, and it's going to change all of your options up here. So we want fluids. Come to the fluids menu, get example, fluid. And remember, this is only showing up in that FX option. And all of these are built into Maya. So you can pick one and you can just click and drag it in. And you can see in the outliner here, it created its own camera, it created a sun, which is a light, and it created the actual clouds. So I'm gonna close out of this. But if we look at the render right now, render, you can see the clouds are just kind of sitting there and the light is looking a little funky. All right, so you can see that's what the render looks like. The clouds are a little bit low and the sun is shining there. So we need to make some adjustments. Let me X out of that. If you don't see this outliner here, just come up to Windows Outliner, which is right here. And that's going to show you this stuff. And you can just click on stuff and delete it in here. It's kind of all your different objects. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Oops, not too far. And I want to select on the actual clouds. And I'm going to go to the move tool. So clouds, sun clouds, I'm selected on. And then I'm in the move tool and we can pull them up. You can even have like maybe some of the mountains going into the clouds and then we can scale them. So I'm just clicked on the clouds and I'm scaling them. Scale them to make them bigger. That's totally up to you. You can rotate them, you can move them a lot or not, you can have them high up in the sky or lower in the sky. That's really up to you. Also, I think the sun needs to move because it's super bright and big, so you can move it maybe out here, like it could be behind the mountains. Let's see how that looks. So I'm going to come up to the render, the eye clapper thing. And we have to pick render, render current, and just give it time to work. You can also, if this isn't looking the way you want, you can also delete the sun and just use the light that comes as a default light, because that might be a little frustrating for you. You can, move the sun around. I think you guys are used to this from Lightwave. You can just be adjusting all these different things until you get them exactly how you want them. So clouds are an option, might take a while to mess around with. Okay, so for the interest in time, I'm just going to show you how to save this file, but obviously you don't want to see this sharp edge. You could make your clouds, scale them up so they're going through the dome so we don't see that edge. Or that they're, obstructed by the mountains. You obviously want to move your light around so you can see your houses, and I think you guys know how to do all of that. So we're in the render view here. Everything is looking great, a lot greater than mine, and we're coming to File, Save Image, and I'm going to save mine to the desktop right now, but you're going to save yours to your M drive, and file type, make it a ping, and save. And then it should show up looking like the render. It's a little darker, so you're going to take time to adjust everything, and we can work on that in class. So have fun and enjoy this new program.